Have you ever finished a conversation and felt completely drained? Not angry, not upset, just off. Like the ground under you shifted and you can't tell when or how. You stayed calm. You said nothing extreme, and yet somehow you're the one replaying every word, questioning yourself, wondering what went wrong. Most men don't see it coming. The control didn't begin with your words. It started with hers. True control rarely shouts. It doesn't need arguments or dramatics. It arrives disguised as care, neatly packaged in phrases that sound reasonable, timed perfectly when you're most susceptible. And if you can't spot these words, you give away power without realizing it. You don't resist. You barely notice there's a battle. You slowly hand over your autonomy, thinking you're being considerate. In this video, we'll examine the specific phrases that seem innocent, but quietly shift the balance, long before you see it. Let's dive in. Number 1. I just need you to understand how I feel. At first glance, it seems healthy, right? Sharing feelings, being open, connecting emotionally. It looks like the foundation of a good relationship, but the reality is different. This isn't about mutual understanding, it's a demand for emotional compliance. That difference is subtle, but crucial. When she says this, she isn't inviting dialogue. She's declaring her emotions as the priority, the standard, the thing that must be acknowledged before anything else matters. Your perspective fades, your feelings wait, your concerns are put on hold. Psychologically, it's effective because men are problem solvers. We instinctively try to address emotional needs. We want to fix, to help, to support. So you listen, validate, nod, assume that once her emotions are accounted for, there'll be space for yours. Except that space never opens. The moment she feels understood, the conversation ends. There's no follow-up like, now help me see your side. Her emotions dominate. Yours aren't even on the table. Over time, you feel the imbalance but can't articulate it. You start leading with validation. You cushion your concerns. You ensure she's comfortable before you speak your truth. Slowly, your inner life becomes private, managed quietly, while hers takes constant priority. Remember this. Understanding must go both ways, or it's not understanding, it's compliance. Number 2. I don't want to fight about this. Sounds mature, right? Who wants conflict? Fighting is exhausting, damaging, pointless. So your instinct is to agree. Neither of you wants it. But watch closely. The conversation doesn't continue calmly. It stops. The issue isn't resolved. Bringing it up again becomes fighting. This phrase turns any disagreement into aggression. Your attempt to discuss something becomes the problem itself. You step back. You tell yourself it's not worth the tension. You choose peace, but it's not peace. It's silence. Silence doesn't solve anything. It only delays the discussion while the issue grows beneath the surface. Psychologically, you start associating honesty with conflict, and conflict with failure. You stop speaking up. You tolerate more. You adjust what you expect. You convince yourself some things aren't worth addressing. Ultimately, this means her comfort takes priority over your clarity. Avoiding her frustration becomes more important than resolving your concerns. Once this habit forms, control doesn't need effort. It only needs your silence. When conversations are optional, only one person's boundaries truly matter. Number 3. You're making this bigger than it is. Notice what this actually does. It doesn't dispute the facts. It attacks your interpretation of them. The problem shifts from what she did to how you responded. Minimization disguised as reason. It feels like balance, rationality, even guidance. But what happens underneath is your emotional response being labeled as too much before the real issue is addressed. Psychologically, doubt creeps in at the worst moment when you're trying to express something important. Instead of defending your point, you defend your right to have one. You question yourself. Am I overreacting? Is this really a problem? Should I just let it go? That hesitation is exactly the goal. When you doubt your own perception, instincts weaken. You second-guess before speaking. You soften your concerns, frame them carefully, even apologize for raising them. Over time, this shapes how you measure all feelings against a moving standard that's always just out of reach. The truth, if your emotions are constantly labeled as too much, the problem isn't your sensitivity. It's who decides what's acceptable to feel.
Number 4. I'm only saying this because I care. This is criticism wrapped in concern, judgment presented as love. That makes it almost impossible to resist without appearing ungrateful. When someone says this, your resistance is framed as proof that you don't appreciate their concern. You're given only 2 choices: accept it or reject the care. There's no room to evaluate whether it's useful, fair, or necessary. Psychologically, this hits a deep need to be valued by someone whose opinion matters. When feedback comes from someone you care about, rejecting it feels like rejecting the relationship itself. So you listen, adjust, and try to improve, even when it chips away at confidence, even when it reshapes you into someone more compliant. Notice what is never questioned: the validity of the criticism, the intent behind it, or whether caring should include freedom to disagree. The pattern is simple: criticism, defense, reframed as care. You're not wrong, you're ungrateful. You apologize, internalize, and comply. Care should never make you smaller. If love makes you shrink, it's leverage, not affection. Number 5. After everything I've done for you. This turns history into currency. Shared experiences become a balance sheet. Debt creates obligation. Obligation enforces compliance. When she says this, she's not reminiscing, she's calculating. Past efforts aren't love, they're investments expecting returns. Most men don't track relationship contributions like credits and debits. You give because you want to, assuming she does too. So when effort becomes evidence of obligation, it hits unexpectedly. Guilt floods in. Have I taken her for granted? Have I not appreciated her? While you process this, the real issue disappears. The conversation now revolves around her sacrifice and your inadequacy. This pattern reinforces itself. Guilt leads to compensatory behavior. Temporarily, things seem better, but the ledger never resets. Next conflict, same phrase returns, now with more weight. Effort doesn't create balance, it creates expectation. Healthy relationships don't tally points. When love becomes leverage, the cycle never ends. Number 6. You always or you never. Absolutes are traps. They explode a single moment into a character judgment. One mistake becomes your identity. When she says you always do this or you never listen, she isn't describing behavior, she's assigning blame to your character. Defending your actions isn't enough. You end up defending yourself. Psychologically, absolutes provoke defensiveness because they're rarely true. You try to disprove them, but now the discussion isn't about the incident, it's about whether you're fundamentally flawed. Resolution is impossible. Over time, these absolutes shape your self-perception. You see yourself through a lens she's constructed, and eventually you internalize it without her even saying a word. Respect focuses on actions. Control attacks character. When disagreements are proof of flaw, you're not in a relationship, you're in a system built to keep you insecure. Number 7. I'm just being honest. Honesty is valued, yes, but this phrase often excuses cruelty. It reframes hurtful comments as essential truth, making any objection seem like oversensitivity. When she follows a cutting remark with this, she isn't inviting discussion, she's shutting it down. Your hurt is framed as weakness, her bluntness as courage. The content, accuracy, fairness, necessity, is never examined. Truth without empathy is weaponized candor. Number 8. Why can't you just be happy? It seems simple, almost harmless, but it doesn't ask why you feel unhappy. It asks why you can't hide it better. Expressing anything other than happiness is inconvenient. You learn to perform contentment, smile, say, "I'm fine," and hide your struggles. This isn't management. This is suppression. Suppression doesn't remove feelings, it buries them, turning them into resentment, detachment, or eventual breakdown. The progression is clear. First, your feelings are questioned, then dismissed, now inconvenient. Your inner life is less important than her comfort. You stabilize the relationship by hiding your reality. That is profound loneliness. Only the version of you that doesn't disturb her equilibrium is allowed. A relationship where one person's problems dominate isn't a partnership, it's a performance. Number 9. You're going to leave me anyway. This is manipulation disguised as vulnerability. It isn't fear, it's insurance. By presenting herself as the victim of your potential departure, she achieves two things. 1. Leaving becomes emotionally costly. If you do, you validate her prediction. 2. She triggers sympathy and reassurance. Your instinct is to promise, comfort, reassure. Psychologically, this is a loyalty test masquerading as insecurity. The result? You can't express frustration without triggering abandonment fears. Boundaries feel like withdrawal. Priorities get questioned. Your entire emotional range is compressed into constant reassurance. You stay not out of choice, but guilt. Control becomes effortless. Number 10. I guess I'm just the bad guy. This is the final move. After your emotions are questioned, minimized, reframed, this flips everything. She casts herself as the victim of your accountability. You're no longer discussing the issue, you're comforting her. Your empathy is exploited. The problem isn't solved. Behavior doesn't change. The dynamic inverts. You are the aggressor, her the injured party. Control sustains itself. The cost of speaking up becomes too high. Silence becomes easier than honesty. Look at these phrases together. They aren't random, they form a system. Questioning emotions, minimizing concerns, inducing guilt, creating insecurity. Your judgment, boundaries, emotional reality, all negotiable. Hers remains intact. Being controlled doesn't mean weakness, it means you cared, you tried, you gave benefit of the doubt longer than you should. These phrases target that exact quality, your patience, your reason, your empathy. That's why they work. Awareness changes everything. Once you can name it, you stop personalizing it. You stop arguing with yourself. You stop mistaking manipulation for depth. You start setting boundaries, not loudly, not emotionally, but calmly, firmly, from self-respect that requires no permission. Control only works where confusion exists. Once you trust yourself again, the system loses power. These phrases become clear. The relationship either recalibrates or reveals itself. If this video illuminated something you felt but couldn't explain, subscribe. This channel is about understanding relationship psychology without the clutter. Hit like if any of these phrases felt familiar. Share with someone who needs clarity. Comment below, which of these phrases have you experienced the most?